Okay, I'm going to show you just how quick and easy it is to make your own pike trace. Now, the first thing you need to do is to get all your components. You're going to need some wire. What wire do you go for? I would say most anglers would go for a 7-strand. You can buy other types, you know, 49-strand, 19-strand, even titanium, but for the beginner or that person that's fishing their club lakes down the river, looking to do a bit of dead baiting for the first time or to make their own traces, go for a 7-strand. Okay, that's what most of the traces you will, you know, buy when you buy ready-made traces. So first thing you've got to consider is how long the trace need to be. Now, don't make your traces too short, because then you run the risk of getting a bite off through your main line. So I belong to a couple of clubs that set a kind of minimum length of 20, I think it's 24 inches. Now that might sound a little bit long, but you know, there are reasons for pike safety on that one. So when I'm making my own traces, obviously I've got to keep in with those rules if I'm fishing those waters. So I just get a ruler here. This is 24, and as you can see, I've set it to 27 inches. I've cut my wire with a good pair of wire cutters, 27 inches, and that will allow, after I put the swivel on and the hooks, that I'll be back down to 24 inches and fishing within those rules. Okay, I would say on other waters I might go down to sort of 19, 20 inches on the river, but you know, on other clubs waters when I'm fishing the Avon or the Stour. But you know, on this club it's 24 inches, so check your rules you know, in your book, just to make sure you're actually abiding by those. So again, 7-strand, that's what most people will use for standard dead baiting. Cut the wire. First thing I'm going to do is get one of these taper sleeves. Now all these components you can get from PikePro. Go to the website, you can see the website address below. Have a look, check out all the components and the other bits of tackle we do, and then if you just go through the links you can find what shops actually stock those. A lot of the Angling Direct actually stock our products, or most of them if not all, so you're going to have one of those close to you, or simply phone up your tackle shop and say, do you stock PikePro kit, because we are trying to get those into as many tackle shops as we can. So taper sleeve, and the first thing that's going on is that is threaded onto your 7-strand wire. That's going to be followed by a crimp. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be. And then a size 6 hook. Now you can go for a 4 or an 8, but I would say when I'm using a dead bait like a sardine or a smout on the lakes or the river, or a kind of medium natural bait, I'll go for a size 6. You can go for a 4 if you're using half a mackerel or a herring or big natural, or even scale it down to a size 8. The only time I use 8s is if I'm using like a single size 8 and a small live bait. So, you know, a good choice is a size 6. These are semi-barbed, so basically threaded first the sleeve, then the crimp, and then the hook of my choice onto that wire. Bend the wire round and thread that back into the crimp. Pull the crimp down to the hook, and then get your crimping tools. You can get these from PikePro as well, and then just give it a firm squeeze. You'll feel that crimp collapse. You've got lots of little ridges there, and those ridges will make sure that that does not come apart. Slide your swivel, your sleeve onto your hook. Now I just twist that as it goes on. If you don't, sometimes that little bit of wire can come in and poke you in the finger, so just twist it on, and there you have, you've got your first size 6 treble on your wire. I then get a bait flag, and that goes onto the barbed hook. Now the nice thing about placing it on the barbed hook is if when you're actually fishing you land that pike, you know where the barbs are. They're the ones that if they go in your finger they're going to do a damage, but 9 times out of 10, because that barbed hook has gone into the fish, that barbed hook is not going to be in the pike's mouth, but it potentially could do you some damage. So the flag I put onto the barbed hook. The other two are barbless. Okay, first hook mounted, next goes on the second treble hook. So I just thread that onto the wire and pull it down. Now after this sequence and me talking, I am going to do and make a trace up in slow motion. Now I can make these traces up in about 60 seconds. That's how quick you can make them. And what I do is I set those about 3 inches apart. That is a good size for, you know, as I said, sardines, smelt, and you know, your standard sort of medium-sized naturals. I wouldn't go too long because sometimes that can affect it. You know, you could deep hook a pike. So basically about 3 inches apart, because this hook here is going to go, you know, into the tail root of your dead bait, and this one's going to go sort of halfway into the body of that dead bait. Next job is just to clamp the wire to the shank of the hook, and then I just go round the shank of the hook twice, and then I put it over so it locates at the top of those 3 hooks, and it just sits in there nicely. Next, get your wire trace, the other, you know, the end, and put it through. Put it down. What you'll hear is that it just click as it locates there. Get the end of your wire trace and get your hook cover, little dumpy hook cover, and that pulls down straight on to your hook. Keeps it nice and neat and tidy. Again, as I said before, get your hook's flag onto the barbed hook, and there you have it. You've got your 2 hooks mounted onto your 7-strand wire. Last but not least, another one, the tapered sleeves. Thread that onto your wire. Small crimp onto your wire. Swivel, nice and strong swivel. Fold the wire over. Push it in back into that crimp. Get your crimping tool and simply press down nice and firmly so that that crimp collapses and traps that wire. That will not let you down, that will not slip or give. And then place your sleeve in back over that swivel. So there you have it, nice and easy. A 24-inch standard 7-strand dead baiting wire trace with 2 size 6 trebles on. And the way I store these hooks is I get my little rig bins. At the top I've got what size hooks here. This is obviously size 6s, and I've got here, I've got size 4s. What I've done is I've got my rods already made up for my first pike outing. It's mid-October. I do want the weather to get a bit cold. I think it's still a little bit mild to get into the pike fishing. The rivers need some water seriously before I head down there. So it's a good time just to get all your traces made up and your kit sorted out. So I get my rig bin. I've already made 2 dead baiting size 6 traces up, and all I'm going to do is wind the 3rd trace on. Round I go. This is nice foam, so it protects your hook points. And then there you have it, 3 size 6 standard dead baiting traces made up. I've left a bit of room here because I'm actually going to make 3 pop-up size 6 traces, which I'm going to show you in a different video. And then when I go fishing for the first time, if I'm on a venue like a lake or a reservoir, I'm probably going to start off with 1 bottom bait and 1 popped up bait. So what I will have is my rods made up with one of those, and then I'll have 3 bottom baits and 3 pop-up spare traces made up. So if one of the wire does get kinked, I can just replace it. And the other lovely thing about making your own traces up is you can, when you get a little bit more into it, kind of make a trace up to suit the venue. I can remember fishing French and Great Pond really shallow. Now I don't want to pop a bait up 24 inches, which is the length of the trace I have to use. So what I actually did was I made a length of wire about 18 inches, put a swivel on there, then set my 2 hooks, put some tungsten putty around that, and I could manage to get my pop-up sitting off its nose on the bottom. So it's really satisfying when you make your own traces that you can adapt that to the size of the bait or the venue and catch your pike on those. So as I said, I'll make up some more traces, some more advanced traces as we go, but there you have it. 3 size 6, 7 strand wire, 24 inches, all ready to go.